Let's just get right into it. I think UFC 263 is one of the best cards, of this year so far. I think it's a card that appeals to both the mainstream fan because of Adesanya and Diaz, but also to the hardcore fan who's looking at that Figueiredo versus Moreno fight like me and you are, because we're excited for that rematch. Like, to me, this fight, I'm anticipating more than Edwards and Diaz. As much as I'm anticipating it, this fight has me.
Yeah, this whole card, really, that's why when I was getting ready to kind of take a look at this ahead of time for the podcast, that's why I texted you. Are we going to do the full card or just the main card? You're like, just the main card. So I'm like, it's really good enough. We can do it on that, time permitting. So
True.
It's really good, dude. It's a really good card. Like you said, man. Adesanya, amazing. Nate Diaz, of course. People are going to tune in whenever he does anything. They could literally have him like just follow him around, like going to the mall, and it would do like 10 million views. Like, that's how popular that dude is.
He is. He's insanely popular. And let's begin with the Dober fight, Dober and Rydell. I don't know if this is going to be like the feature prelim.
Yeah.
I haven't had Drew Dober on my show for quite some time. What's the last time you talked to him?
I think it was Lincoln, UFC Lincoln, when Gaethje beat Vic. I think that's the last time I had. I remember because he liked the hat I was wearing. I was wearing the leather, like a nice leather topper.
Right.
And he's like, nice hat. I was like, thanks, bro. But that was the last time I talked to him. I really like him. I feel like a lot of his fights are real close. Could have kind of went either way. But even though his record's not fantastic at 23-10, he's still got a UFC spot because he's one of those fighters that he's like you said, for the hardcores, he's must see because he's going to give you 100% every time.
True. When we go back to that Makhachev fight, though, his strategy, it seemed like he was willing to engage in grappling too much. He stayed a bit too close to Makhachev. Now, I know this is the fight game, right? We're only looking at it from the outside. But, a lot of people will see that fight and say, well, why didn't he use his kicks, keep that distance, and don't engage Makhachev in the wrestling at all? Mm-hmm. Of course, it's one thing to say it, another thing to do it.
Yeah,
you think he had the wrong strategy?
Like you said, man, it's probably super easy to say after the fact. But I think he just probably believes in himself so much that I've never been in a professional fight, and I always wondered, like, are you thinking like some guys are probably thinking, okay, like I'm ahead. Some guys are probably thinking, I got to win this round. I always wondered like the mentality of a fighter, and you got to think a guy like Dober is always thinking he's in the fight. So it's so hard to say,
Definitely. When we look at this fight, obviously with Rydell, this is a tough guy that's coming out of the Fame gym, right? I think city boxing, kickboxing. He has only one loss to his name, and that was prior to UFC. And since UFC, 3 straight victories in the UFC, all going by decision. This fight against Gregor Gillespie was canceled back in March. So how do you feel about the matchup, man? How do you think, what stands out to you of Brad Rydell?
City kickboxing.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing that stands out. Those guys are just killers, man. If you just showed me his resume, some tough guys, Alex De Silva, he's beaten Magomed Mustafaev, Jamie Mulkey, Mikey Vettori. So he's fought some tough guys in and outside of the UFC. But if you just showed me that resume, it's not super impressive. And this is a big step up for him. It's going to be a good fight. There's a reason that the UFC slotted this as their ESPN headliner going into the pay-per-view, because this fight is going to guarantee action.
And so who would you pick, Dober or Rydell?
I'm going to go with Dober.
Dober.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so too. He's had more of those experienced fights. I think this is one of his recent fight was one of his worst, right? Like, this is one of the toughest opponents he's had. And is probably the toughest guy he's faced in his career. And I think he gets it done. I think he just plays the game smart. I think this is a fight that he'll love to try and engage Rydell in the grappling. Because I don't know how Rydell is as a grappler. Obviously he probably knows, a fair amount just to, you have to get this far. But, against Dober, he can't underrate him. I think Rydell has good TKO power. He had TKOs right before UFC where he racked up 3 of, about 5 of them almost in a row. So, Dober's got to be careful. This guy, he can strike with the best of them, man. If you're going out to city kickboxing, you're training with Adesanya, you're training with Tiger Muay Thai, you're training, with the best strikers in the world. You got to expect that as Dober. So I think he has to get close. Don't give him the range to strike and just look to wear on him. But I think he's going to actually, land some shots of his own. I don't think it's just going to be a boring grappling fight. I think Dober's that guy who loves to mix it up, and he'll take those risks when necessary. But for this fight, I think he uses that wrestling. He puts that as his main arsenal of his jiu-jitsu. And again, guy trains with some of the best in the world at Elevation Top Team. He's the partner. He's the training partner. I was supposed to say tag team partner, training partner, training partner of Justin Gaethje, man. He's trained with some of the greatest out there. Obviously Cameron Usman, who's now at Elevation Fight Team as well. Dober told me he's worked with him. And Neil Magny. So just the level that he's at, I think Dober wins this fight. I think it's his for the taking.
I completely agree.
And then we get to the next fight in the card, Jamal Hill. He's fighting another tough guy in Paul Craig, right? That's a good fight.
The Bear Jew.
Yes, I like him. Paul Craig is tough. Like when you see his fights, this guy is going to bring it. Like there's not been a guy that went through him and said, oh, that was easy. I don't think, ask Shogun. Ask Ankalaev, who got submitted by him. Remember, that was like a last-minute ditch effort, right? 5 minutes, 59 seconds, and Craig was said he was going to retire. He said on the Helwani show he was going to retire if he didn't win that fight. And so he lived to fight another day. He just recently ranked up those 3 wins in a row, all finishes. He's a tough guy. Hill's tough because he's 8-0. I think that both these guys, have great records. They both have what it takes to win at the big stage. OSP, definitely found out from Jamal Hill what he had. He took his heat, man. In the second round, he was finished with a standing TKO. OSP was. I think that this is a fight that we're going to see, obviously, who is the better guy. But now who is the better guy, but who's more advanced in their stage of their career.
Yeah, I mean, speaking of stage of their career, Craig's 33, and Jamal Hill is surprisingly 30.
Right.
Paul Craig's been in the UFC since 2016, so we've got to kind of watch him come into his own. Like you said, that submission of Ankalaev, man, that was mind-blowing.
Yes.
If you remember, like, Ankalaev, panicked. Like, he'd never been put in that position in his life. Like, he tapped. It was crazy.
Right.
But yeah, I like Paul Craig in this fight, and he's a plus 220 underdog. So
right.
I'll take that all day.
Me too.
Taking a look at Hill's record, I don't know if he's ever really fought. Kind of like that same thing I said about Riddle. I don't know if he's ever really fought anybody like this, like Paul Craig.
Not quite. I mean, OSP was a former challenger for the belt, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, OSP is a very tough guy,
right.
And maybe even more dangerous than Craig on the feet. But when the fight gets to the ground, I think that's where Craig has a significant advantage than anybody Hill has maybe faced. And we've seen how dangerous Craig is even off his back. So even if this fight looks like Hill is winning, watch out because Craig can get it done. So I like him. I like him a lot in this fight.
Yeah, I do too. I'm going to go with the more experienced guy in this fight. Obviously there's a lot of experience. It seems there's a lot of experience on one side, and then, on the other side is more like the newer guys, the newer rivals. So, and I'll go with the experienced one in this particular matchup. Next up we got Maya Bilal Muhammad. Damian Maya has been, setting records, man, in jiu-jitsu, right? I think he has so many different records in the BJJ game. And then we came over to the MMA world, just started submitting guys, one after the other. Remember, he just plowed through Team Quest. He plowed through all their best guys, including Chael Sonnen. So who can never forget that? And he's fought for the belt before. Maybe it wasn't a great fight, but you could say he's actually fought for the UFC belt when he fought Anderson Silva back at UFC 112. I think that he's a guy that's seen some of the best fighters in the world and he's been able to expose them. You know, Lyman Good, first round rear naked choke. His last fight against Ben Askren, which was in the 3rd round, and that, you know, that was basically Ben Askren's last fight in UFC, last fight in MMA. As we know, he went on to retirement. And, you know, I think that he has had losses against Woodley, Covington, Usman, tough guys, right? They're some of the best in the world. So, you know, he's come out on top. He's lost his fair share as well. And obviously Gilbert Burns with that big hook, you know, finish, that was definitely, you know, had to be debilitating for him and, you know, deflating for him. Just like, man, I just couldn't get that, you know, notch another win and get myself back up. But he takes on Muhammad. Muhammad is surging, man. This kid is surging. Like, every team we see him better and better. And now he's been getting finishes, Hezbollah. So, you know, it's just like, he's not just a threat, you know, where he's, you know, he's beating you by points. He's smothering you from on top. He is tricky to figure out. I think he's very tricky. I think a lot of guys have trouble with Bilal Muhammad. And like I said, he's more of the newer guys. He's on that side of the bracket, which is one of the newer guys. I know he's been fighting for a while, and Maia's the more experienced guy.
This is an interesting fight. I love Bilal Muhammad.
Yeah.
We've got to see him grow. He's another one of those guys that,
Yes.
being a Chicago guy, we've kind of kept extra tabs on, you know. So he's 32. He's kind of just hitting his prime. You mentioned he's been on a real run, calling his shots. Now he's doing a lot of commentary, which is good to see. I think he's really good there too. Mike's 43, definitely on the downside of his career. That being said, I think he gets it done. I think Maia gets it done here.
You do?
I think his grappling is just too much. I think Bilal is a really good fighter, but I think Damian Maia's grappling is too elite, even at 43. And I think he's gonna, if he doesn't finish him, I think he'll find a way. He's much bigger, much bigger than him physically. True. Even though obviously they're gonna both be weighing in at 170, he's still a much bigger man.
Yes.
I'm gonna go Damian Maia.
Yeah, I think you have made a lot of valid points about the grappling exchanges. I just think it's what Bilal can do to kind of confuse Damian. You know, I think that Bilal has good takedowns, and you know, so Maia has some great takedown defense. It's one of those fights. It's gonna be very close. I'm almost going with a decision on this one. I think it's gonna be a real close decision. And I think Muhammad gets his hand raised. It may not be like, oh, well, he dominated him. It may be even controversial, but I just feel like Muhammad is tricky. And, you know, whatever Damian Maia presents him, he'll be ready for it. But, like, again, this guy has, like you said, you know, he's got a toolbox for years, right? That spans decades, you know. And so that's what Muhammad has to be careful, is not to be on his back against Damian Maia. If he can avoid that, I think he can mix it up when the striking well. And like I said, I think he's tricky himself when it comes like to the stand up. So Maia is going to be like, well, do I go in for the takedown? Do I don't? Because I could just catch a knee right here and, you know, and it'll be over. You know, Bilal is very athletic, you know. I think that Bilal, his athleticism, I think he's only unlocked like maybe 75% of it. I think he's still got you know what I mean? He's still got stuff he can unlock, right? And I, for one, love to see him do some of those spinning moves. You know, I've seen him train, and you know, I know he lets it go a bit much more in the gym than maybe during a regular fight. But I know he has it in him to really take risks, and I think when it presents himself, he'll take those risks to win, and I think they'll pay off. And that's why I'm going with him in this fight. Again, I'm giving Maia the experience. I give Maia like the durability that Bilal's not just going to be able to knock him out right away. You know, I don't see that. I think this is a fight that goes to decision. Very hard fought, close fight. But at the end, I think Bilal gets his hand raised, whether the judges were right or wrong.
Most people would agree with you, because Bilal is a minus 235 favorite, and Maia is a plus 190. So.
True. I do think that's a good value for Damian Maia, though. I think that Maia is definitely capable of winning a fight. We get to the one of the co-main events, right? Let's say there's two co-main events.
It's 5 rounds.
Right. That's what I said. One of the two co-main events.
3 co-main events.
Right. 3 co-main events. Right. So we get to that fight, you know, and obviously we're just coming off a very intriguing welterweight fight with Maya and Bilal Muhammad. Then we get to Leon Edwards, who could possibly walk out as a number one contender if he fights Nate Diaz. And Leon Edwards, you know, although it was a, you know, what was it? A no contest because of obviously those eye pokes that he destroyed, you know, hampered Bilal Muhammad with. We could see what his strategy was in breaking down Bilal in that first round, you know, and the first and a half round, whatever. And you know, as much as we'd like to see that rematch happen, Leon is kind of in a position right now that he beats Nate Diaz, maybe he's one fight away, or he may already be the number one contender. You know, I'm just trying, you know, rack my head at 170, who could possibly be, you know, in his way for that time, in his path for the belt.
You know, I've never been much of a Leon Edwards fan. I don't see what people see in him. Obviously, he's a great fighter, but I don't think he's upper echelon material. Who has he beaten? Who has he beaten? Right. He's beaten some guys that I really like personally, but who has he beat? Vicente Luque? Who has he beaten? The one time he fought an upper echelon guy, Kamar Usman, he got smashed.
Right, and that was back in 2015, and that's one of his one of the couple losses that he has on his record. But I mean, you know,
he ran from that Bilal Muhammad rematch. Bilal wanted that rematch, and he deserved that fight rightfully. That was his first main event. That was a big deal for Bilal, and he ran from that rematch.
True, but then if you look at that first round, you could tell Bilal was probably in the red. He was probably losing that fight. If it kept going the way it was going,
that's hard to say.
I really didn't see it turn around.
If I would have showed you the first round of the Michael Chandler Charles Oliveira fight and said, dude, at the end of that, no one in the world had Oliveira coming out and doing that in the second. That's why the fight, you know, you can't take it away from him, you know. That's why I said, I don't know. It just bothers me that he ran from it.
I hear you, and it's bothering
a lot. That being said, I don't. I'm sorry. That being said, I can't see where Nate Diaz beats him, so I'm going to pick Leon Edwards.
And that's my pick too. is because, you know, Leon Edwards has had the capability to really, you know, push forward and set that pace. You know, he beat out Sanjos over 5 rounds. But you're right. I mean, overall, it's not overly impressive what he's done. I think he needs to take on top guys. He needs to take on top finishers to get there. I mean, I would like to see Leon Edwards, you know, take on Mike Chiesa, for example. We haven't seen Mike Chiesa fighting, you know, for half a year. So, like, you know, I think Chiesa has a chance to say, hey, Leon, you got to go through me first, buddy. You know, you're not going right for the belt. And I don't think this is a number one contendership. Like I said, I think it's at least one fight out from being a number one contender. He beats Diaz, then maybe make that fight with Michael Chiesa. What do you think? I mean, why is Maverick sitting out?
I don't know. I know he's doing a lot more commentary and stuff. I don't know if he's focusing more on that or what, man. But I mean, yeah, he's a guy that I would love to see him fight. If Bilal gets by Damian Maia and Edwards gets Diaz, maybe I would like to see those two go, and then whoever the winner of that, perhaps. I don't know. I agree with you. I think it's at least a one step out kind of thing. Leon Edwards is a minus 500 favorite. Diaz is a plus 380. You know, a lot of people are going to be cashing Diaz tickets, though. I mean, they're going to be, you know, he's just one of those guys. So, and who knows, man? Maybe Diaz comes out and pieces him up in that first, you know, anything could happen. But I'm going to go Leon Edwards.
Yeah. I'm going with Leon Edwards, and like I said, Mike Chiesa definitely could fit into this fight or the previous fight we talked about against the winner, most definitely. Yeah. And Chiesa, I think, could handle. I think he could handle Leon Edwards pretty well. I think he would give him trouble if that fight goes to the ground.
I think trouble on the feet.
Yes, trouble. Do you think Chiesa would give him trouble on the feet? Leon Edwards.
His last couple of fights, his hands were significantly getting better and better, and if that trajectory continued, then I think he could give him some. I don't think he would beat him up on the feet, but I think he could give him some problems.
I think anything's possible, and I think also, you know, Bilal Muhammad can give Leon Edwards problem on the feet too, maybe in another fight. Anything's possible, and I think Leon Edwards also kind of plays a trap game when he's fighting, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, to an extent. Yes. Yeah. Kind of slow, like kind of a little bit of Yoel Romero in him.
Right.
Kind of lulls you with like a slower pace and then explodes.
Exactly. Exactly.
That's a good way to put it.
I am a fan of Nate Diaz, and listen, he's been Mr. Upset before. I mean, he beat Conor McGregor. You know, that was such a huge upset at the time. So, you know, he's done it before. His last victory was against Anthony Pettis, you know, back in 2019. And, you know, that was like his first fight coming back to fight Anthony Pettis, right? That was his first fight in like 3 years. And so then he take another couple years off, and now he's back. He said he wanted to fight with fans. And I love Nate Diaz, like as a fighter, as like his personality, everything like that. And you never know, maybe he could pull something off. He's saying he's going to be the bigger guy. When I listened to his most recent interview, I don't think so. But and then he's talking about he kind of was kind of propping up his jiu-jitsu school and everything, saying that, you know, he's got submissions that'll finish guys and he can cause them pain and agony. So we'll see. It's interesting to see how this fight plays out. Obviously, we go to the real co-main event, which is Figueiredo Moreno. Man, this is a toss-up for me because I love both fighters after this fight. Like, this fight was 5 rounds, nonstop action. The UFC 125-pound division has delivered good fights. It's just people don't want to open their eyes and see it. They call them midgets. They call them, you know, overrated, and you know what I mean, pillow hands, you know. And so I think they've had enough of that talk. So when they go in the ring, I think the UFC flyweights, especially when, you know, at one point the division was cut and had so many, it was supposed to be cut, and that had support from fans, which is crazy. They wanted the flyweight division gone. They wanted Dana White to get rid of the division. So this was an epic fight. I think it was probably the best UFC flyweight fight of all time, in my opinion. I know there's probably one or two out there that would come close to it. Both these guys delivered, you know, what they needed to get ahead in that fight, you know, keep it even. It was kind of like, you know, 2 thoroughbred horses, not one giving up an inch. You know, I would just say, when you look at the fight, they may have gotten the call wrong with the draw. I know that some said Figueiredo seemed like he was the winner, and then of course there's those who deter from that and said Moreno should have walked out with the championship. So what did you think of the first fight?
It was a great fight. I agree, probably the best 125-pound fight ever.
Yes.
I like the call. I like the draw. I'd have to go back and actually watch it and score it as far as knowing the accuracy. But I like the draw because I feel like neither guy really lost. Maybe you could give it to Figueiredo because he's the champion, and the adage is you got to beat the champion. Looking forward to this rematch, man. I was watching, I don't know if it was the first or the second UFC Embedded, and do you know what Moreno did to upset Figueiredo? Because Figueiredo was like, man, when I see him, there's going to be problem, there's going to be trouble, there needs to be security, because, like, right. I want to, like, what did he do? Yeah. What did he do?
He said he wants to make him cry in agony and everything like that. I don't know. I just think it's the monkey off his back. He wants to get done with this guy and move on to the next.
Yeah.
You know? This guy gave him adversity for the first time. Of course he's going to be pissed off. You know?
Davidson was actually at that same fight, that same Gaethje fight, that same Vic Gaethje fight. Got to see him live. And there was a few people, a few media guys backstage that were like, this guy's a future champ. And he went out and it was a crazy fight. And I was like, yeah, to be honest, I didn't see it. But wow, what he's done. I mean, he's amazing, exciting. I think he's going to beat Brandon Moreno. I think he's going to beat him definitively. He's a minus 250 favorite. Moreno is a plus 200, and that's really good. That's really good odds on him too, because we saw already, you know, Moreno, at least in those first 5 rounds, those first 25 minutes, the kid was able to bang with him, and at times he was close, you know, to finishing. So it was an incredible fight.
I agree. Both are incredible fighters, and you know, Moreno is right there. You know, I think neck and neck. I think his reach is very well. I think, you know, he was prepared for everything Figueiredo, you know, did to him. But look at how dominant Figueiredo was how he was just finishing guys after guys. You know what I mean? Look what he did to that kid Alex, and that guy was on a hell of a roll, and how he beat him. You know, and then just like, you know, how he beat Joseph Benavidez twice in a row and finished him. You know, whether, you know, right. And I think that shows you, what he's capable of doing. Alex Perez was the fighter he fought, and just been on a tear. I just think that he's, one of those guys who's going to be champion for a while. I think Moreno is going to give him another challenge, but I think he's going to come back and finish Moreno, just knowing his mindset. And, we have to remember that last fight, they were fighting on 3 weeks prior. 3 weeks prior, they had both fought on the UFC pay-per-view card.
Wow, right, yeah.
Right, so even though it was a quick fight for Figueiredo, and it was a quick fight for Moreno, that's grinding. I mean, notching on another 3 weeks right afterwards, not celebrating, that had to be a challenge.
That Brandon Royval fight that Moreno had, that was crazy. That's where he hurt his shoulder. Yeah.
So I think that both guys have healed up. They've rested. Now's the time for the rematch. But I think the better man will be Figueiredo walking out with that championship once again. Yeah, I think the flyweight division's fun. I think, I've told my friends, you got to watch this fight. They say they call the flyweight division midgets. Oh, they have too many weight classes. These guys don't belong here. I'm like, watch this fight. Maybe I think that'll change your mind. If that doesn't change your mind, I don't know what to tell you. The fight was incredible. The rematch is going to be epic. You know what I mean? You just can't convince people. Some people are now trying to think of 2008 UFC or 2007 UFC. They think the 5 weight classes, and they don't even like the females being added in. They're saying the females are boring. I'm sure you have friends like that, right? Oh, I don't watch UFC. It's lame compared to what it used to be.
To be honest with you, most of my fans don't even care for the UFC, or most of my friends don't even care for the UFC.
Right. Right, so I prefer if they say, oh, I don't watch UFC. But no, every time they have to criticize why UFC was better 10 years ago and why they have to, make a reason why they're not watching it and constantly remind you of it. You know what I mean? They had to justify the reason for not being a fan. You know what I mean? Why do you feel the need to justify to me? Just say you're just not interested anymore, But then, of course, Connor's fight. Oh, I got to watch Connor. You know what I mean?
Yeah, go watch Connor.
Exactly. Or now I got to watch Adesanya.
Floyd Paul.
Yep. Exactly. And then this brings us to main event, Adesanya, Vettori. The first fight was a split decision. Many fans did think that when they go back, they think Adesanya won the fight. I don't know if you had a chance to rewatch it again. Competitive fight between both these guys in that middleweight division. Not a lot of people that give Adesanya trouble. Whitaker didn't give Adesanya trouble. But then Kelvin Gastelum did, and then Whitaker just finished. You just can't do that MMA math anymore. But, this fight, Vettori's been, doing very well. He's the last guy he beat, Jack Hermanson. He beat a tough veteran, a guy who had more experience than him. And, he showed his vulnerabilities in that fight. Vettori's just impressive, man. The first ever Italian UFC champion. I like the way that sounds. I always thought, wouldn't it be lovely if UFC went to Italy? I'd have another reason to visit Italy. Tough guy Krings at King's MMA. His last fight against Kevin Holland. As you saw that fight, he was just dominant. Just a guy that I think has went under the radar and now finally gained that opportunity to really shine where he belongs. What do you think?
Are you Italian?
No, I'm not. But I always wanted to go to Italy.
I thought you were.
Oh, thanks, man.
Okay. Yeah, I'm excited for this rematch. Marvin gave him a lot of problems, the first go around. But I don't know, man. I'm looking for reasons to pick Marvin because I so want him to win this fight. Like you said, the first ever Italian UFC champion. That sounds awesome. He's a plus 200 underdog right now. I suspect that'll probably close as we get closer to the fight. Being recording this on Wednesday, I don't know how much it's going to close. I still think he's going to be an underdog. Asanya's a minus 260 favorite heading into this. Shoot, man. We did see the blueprint to beat Adesanya in the last fight, right?
Right.
Blachowicz had. If you can take him down and just impose your will and just land shots, you can beat him. And can Marvin do it? Well, we know from the first fight, Marvin could give him problems up against the cage, and he could even get him down to the ground briefly. So has Marvin's wrestling and grappling skills, have they came along so much as to where he can now hold him down and beat him up for 25 or for 30 minutes rather?
Right.
I don't know. Not as much as Adesanya's defenses came along, probably. So I'm gonna pick Adesanya, but my heart is definitely with Vettori, but my brain is gonna say Adesanya.
Yeah, we'll see if it's the Italian dream for Vettori comes to life. You know, that I love that nickname as well. Yeah, Vettori is just a guy that we've seen. When he's had his struggles, okay, he struggled, but when you see him on top, he's winning fights. Now he thinks like he looks like he's got it all figured out. He's getting a little too cocky for my own taste. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's definitely deserving of this title shot. But when you look at Israel Adesanya, and you mentioned that, right? Well, we got to see Adesanya's last fight and how to beat him. Well, who also saw his last fight was Adesanya and Adesanya's team. And I think they're gonna make adjustments. Now, will those adjustments make it, foolproof? We'll see. But I think that his team is gonna work on, like you said, building off that last fight, what went wrong, and even that fight, some people thought he won that fight. I had people I was watching said, "Oh, he won that. There's no reason he should have lost that fight." It's all what your perception is. Obviously, I did see him lose that fight, especially in the 5th round. But some of the round, I think the rounds were close. I think if he keeps that distance from Vettori, like he usually does, knows where to step, he anticipates Vettori's takedowns. If he can just really, do what he's been doing, which has just been, seeming invincible, like just, finish guys quickly, finish them, accurate striking. I think he gets it done again. Will this happen like early in the fight? Will it happen first, second round? I doubt it, but I think he's going to get a late finish. I think that those shots, once you see like, oh, that blood dripping and Vettori's bleeding and, Vettori's tasting his own blood, I don't think he's going to run scared, but it's going to be at that point like, oh, this doesn't look like it's going Vettori's way. But, similarly, in the reverse could happen as well. But I think that Adesanya beats him. I think he finishes him in I'm going with a late stoppage. So I'm going with like a 2 minutes, 30 seconds left in the 5th round stoppage for Adesanya.
Wow, really late.
I'm giving Vettori a lot of credit to hang in there, and I might be completely wrong. Even as I'm saying this, I'm kind of hesitating. Like, is if he's going to stop it, usually, Adesanya gets it early. But, I mean, maybe he presents some kind of challenge to Israel. Maybe he just shows he's got a chin of steel and ready to see how long it holds up. And maybe it does hold up, till the 5th round. You never know. We'll see.
I'll say 3. I'll say he'll get him in the 3rd.
You're going to go with the 3rd. Okay. So I'm going to go with the late 5th.
Gets him in the 3rd.
All right. Fair enough. Like I said, I want to see a good fight, though. Most importantly, that's what we come to see as fans, as media. We all, even Dana White wants to see a great fight between these two. Wants to get people talking on Monday morning at the cooler. You know what I mean? Wants to get people's mind off of what's going on in political spectrum, the global spectrum, and COVID-19. Domestically. People just want to get away, and this is the card to do it. This is the fight to do it. It's going to be a fun, exciting night, UFC 263. I tell everybody to come out to Mullins, 7301 Northwestern Avenue, where we host the fights for the Fightlete Report remote podcast. Be there, no cover, great drink and food specials. And shout out to Mullins over here in Rogers Park for hosting us, as always, for UFC. And, appreciate you, Mike, again, being on the Fightlete Report, man. It's fun to, go back and see, did our predictions hold up? But right off the top of the bat, if you had to pick a parlay, who would it be?
So I would go Paul Craig at a plus 220. Obviously, these odds are subject to change, but we could pretty much guarantee that the ones that we're going to be picking are definitely going to still be solid picks. But just keep in mind, if you are betting off this, they're going to change slightly. Paul Craig plus 220, take that. Damian Maia plus 190, I would take that. I would go Eric Anders. He's a slight favorite, minus 145 over Darren Stewart on the undercard.
Mhm.
And then I was gonna take Frivola, but there was no odds on him. So let me give you a 4 fight. I will take Drew Dober minus 135. Those are the 4, 3 or 4. I would go 3 or 4 of those. Realistically, probably only 3. I would probably leave Dober off that. I'd probably go with the 3.
I'm going to go with Adesanya. I'm going to go with Figueiredo, Edwards, and then I'm going to go down the card and I'm going to look at Brad Riddell. So Drew Dober and Brad Riddell. I'm going with Dober. I'm going with Paul Craig, and then my final pick would be Lauren Murphy. That's 6. That's a 16. So $100 would net you $2,613.
There you go.
I like the value of Lauren Murphy against Calderwood, you know. So I'll say that, you know, I think she when you start picking against someone and they're starting to upset, sometimes you got to, you know, jump on board and pick them. You know, I did pick Andrea Lee to beat Laura, and I had that fight incorrect. So, you know, we'll see what happens. You know, big night of fights, you know, big money. I think that if you want to do just a 4 fight, you take off that one and you just leave on the you take off the Edwards Diaz fight, and then that would give me that would be $100 to win $988. So that's pretty good as well. So I mean, that's off the top of my head. Like, that's me looking at the fights and, you know, looking like this is what I could see happening on Saturday night. But, you know, maybe you guys know better. So, you know, shoot us a message, you know, comment on this video, you know, and share this video, and also, you know, like the Fightlete Report YouTube channel. Appreciate the support. We've got a lot of great content coming out, a lot of great interviews coming out as well. And appreciate you, Mike, for being on the Fightlete Report today, man. On S&M Podcast. Take it easy, brother. I'm sure we'll be texting each other during the fights.
I'm sure.
Take care.
Bye.